I'm also hitting the record button on my end.
Okay.
One moment. Okay, so if you do not want your face recorded, you can turn your camera off. And also just another little bit of housekeeping before we start presenting. If folks could also mute themselves, that would be much appreciated. If you don't know how to do that, we can assist you in that.
I don't think I know how to do that.
Okay. There you go. I got you, Tom. All right, everybody else all right? Let's see here. I'm gonna make sure we're all good and muted. All right. All right, John Colhane, I've got you muted because we're getting ready to start presenting.
Can I just real quickly let everybody know, if you want to unmute yourself, you have to hover over your picture, and then the unmute and unmute button will come up in the upper right-hand corner. But Courtney will let you know when we can do questions as well. Okay, I'm muting now.
Okay. Okay, so one of the fun things with the way Zoom is doing this now is because I have this optimized for video and sound sharing, you may see a little black box or gray box hover over your screen from time to time while I'm changing the controls. Hopefully that'll just be temporary though. So just to explain that a bit. So our topic for tonight is going to be one that can be difficult for some people. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss English house sparrows and European starlings, specifically in purple martin colonies. So the first part we're going to be talking about is how did they get here? And you may have noticed that we said European starlings and English house sparrows. So English house sparrows, also known as hosp, and European starlings, also known as used, are not native to the United States or Canada. They were brought to the US in the 1800s from Europe and are considered invasive. So you're going to see HOSP, hosp, and used, EUST, appear, as you see on the screen, frequently throughout this presentation. These are short banding codes, and you'll often see them referenced in forums and other online chats, and that's what they stand for. So just want to make sure we define those for you very quickly. Again, these birds are not native to the United States or Canada, and they were brought to the US here in the 1800s. So hosp, or house sparrows, were deliberately introduced to New York starting in 1851, and this was for attempted pest control. I say attempted because it didn't work, but we'll talk about that in a little later. So folks were hoping that they would control the linden moth caterpillar, which at the time was defoliating a lot of trees in New York. And then later on, house sparrows were introduced to San Francisco and Salt Lake City in the 1870s. So we're talking about just the 1800s. They were introduced, and you'll see now how much they have spread and how much territory they cover. And European starlings, or used, again, there's that abbreviation for you, were deliberately introduced by a Shakespeare enthusiast or enthusiasts who wanted to bring all the birds of Shakespeare to New York. The first release wasn't quite successful, but after several small releases, they were considered to be established, and then starlings began to spread throughout the continent. And they are now found across most of the North American continent, and you will see that in a map. So here in the green, you will see the native range of the house sparrow, and then watch what happens over time. See the year 1800 here. The green is where they're supposed to be. Watch the years advance. In just that period of time, that's how much they have spread Part of that is through introductions from man, and part of that is natural distribution. Now, how about European starlings, or use? There's that abbreviation again. So in this map, you will see the purple area, which is where they are found year-round. And the orangish or reddish area over here is where they're found in the summer. And then this blue area is where their winter range is. So just for point of reference, if you're not quite sure what you're looking at, China's over here, North Africa's over here, Spain is over here. So again, this is not North America. This is the native range of the European starling. So over time, as I discussed earlier, they did spread across the United States. So over here, we've got the current year-round range of house sparrows. You can see in South America how far they are distributed across this area. And then here in North America, they're here almost across the entire continent. And then over here with the starlings, you'll see they're just slightly migratory in some places. You'll see the blue areas here where they're found in the wintertime, and then this purple area here is where you can find them pretty much year-round. So people often wonder if house sparrows and starlings were brought to the United States to eat our pests, what do they really eat? Well, it turns out they're not really good at managing pest species for us at all. So what do house sparrows actually eat? Most of it is actually a seed-based diet, as it is with other sparrows and weaver finches. They're actually in the weaver finch family and are not a true sparrow. So that food can consist of livestock grains, seeds, including weed seeds and grass seeds, human food waste, some insects every now and then. Now, as is the case with most songbirds, they tend to eat the most amount of insects when they are feeding young. And when they are not in that breeding stage, they're not going to eat as many insects at all. And they're going to be eating more of a seed-based type of diet. Of course, the human food waste can also include the French fries and the bread and other scraps that you might find in parking lots. Those are often the birds that you will see in urban areas that are eating leftovers that people throw out on the ground. How about European starlings? So they do eat a few more insects, but again, that is not all that they eat. They also eat berries and fruits, and they are known as being pretty destructive to our crops. They'll eat seeds and, again, livestock grains. They can be real pests around farms for that reason. They'll also eat human food waste and suet. A lot of times if you are offering a suet feeder for your other songbirds, you'll see that they will also try to take advantage of it. And interestingly enough, they have been known to occasionally eat Japanese beetle larvae in lawns. You know, they say sometimes one invasive pest deserves another. So what makes house sparrows and starlings so bad for martins? So what we need to do is we need to discuss the aggressive and destructive behavior of starlings and sparrows. And some people may say, oh, well, this bird is just cute at my feeder, but really what they do is not cute. And what we're going to talk about is what we're seeing in these pictures here. So in this top left and top right photo, these were pictures that were taken at a colony in Raleigh, North Carolina. And what had happened was this pair of martins was trying to set up in a gourd underneath this old wooden house. And a pair of starlings was also trying to set up in this old wooden house. And even though the starlings were not nesting in the gourd and were not interested in trying to get into the gourd, they chased with and fought the martins, as you see in this picture here on the right, away from their gourd. And after this picture was taken, that pair of martins was never seen at that colony again. And in fact, that colony had no martins at all that year. Now, on the bottom left, you'll see this picture. This female martin here was killed by a house sparrow. Yes, house sparrows are smaller than martins, but yes, they can also kill martins. They have a vice-like beak that can crush and peck, and they will often kill other songbirds in attempts to take over their nests. In the middle, you will see another common thing that house sparrows are known for doing, and that is pecking out eggs and throwing them out of a nest or just destroying them and leaving them there. On the bottom right, you'll see a capture from a nest cam there where a house sparrow is in the process right then and there of destroying eggs in the nest. And what they're doing is they're trying to take over that nest and gain more territory. And they have no qualms about destroying eggs, destroying nestlings, and in some cases, even building a nest on top of the carcasses of the young, or on top of the carcasses of the adults, or even on top of the crushed eggs. So again, this behavior is not cute. And it's important that we as Martin landlords be educated about the birds that are in our colony site so we can protect them the best we can. So how to identify house sparrows? Now, if you know this call already, this is probably going to drive you crazy, but this is important that we learn to bird by ear as well as by sight. Okay, I can't stand that anymore. I don't know about y'all, but anyway, there it is. So it's a pretty distinctive call that you can learn to identify as the house sparrow. And what we have here is the picture of the male. And he has some pretty distinctive features, and you want to make sure you pay attention to this slide because there may be a quiz later, little hint there for you. So what you'll see with the male is this black bib here under the throat. And as this little text box indicates, that bib size can change for a juvenile, and for a non-breeding adults, it can look a little different than here. And you can see there's a black beak here. It's not always black, but in many cases it is. White patch under eye here, gray crown, and this streaked back. So when I'm looking at one from a distance, what really stands out to me as a birder is this black bib here on the males, and then this chestnut colored back. Now, there are other species that look a little similar to this, so it's important to pay attention to the next few slides to see those comparisons. So now this is a female house sparrow, and you'll see she looks quite different from the male. But again, you'll see that kind of chestnut pattern on her back here, similar to the male. And with the female here, you'll see a buff eye line with a dark brown line below. And there's no streaking on the chest, no spot on the chest. It's just pretty plain looking. Young house sparrows, when they fledge right out of the nest, they often look like this too before they start getting their mature coloration later on. So these following birds are not house sparrows. So these are things that you may commonly see in your area. Now, keep in mind, these are not all the birds that look like house sparrows, but these are some that you may encounter. So think about how we just described how to identify a house sparrow and compare it to this bird here. So this is a female house finch. Notice the streaked chest here. And there's no eye line here like there was on the female house sparrow. And over here we have the song sparrow. Again, very streaked chest and a striped head, longer tail. Then we've got the white crowned sparrow, the immature and the mature, the adult. These guys are a little bit smaller than house sparrows too. But what's distinctive to me, again, as a birder, is this head. Again, the bill is a different color. But you see that chestnut colored back there. So you also have to pay attention, not to just look at the back, but to look at other distinguishing features of these birds for comparisons. Here's a couple more to think about that you may encounter: the American tree sparrow and the chipping sparrow. This cute little guy also has a chestnut streaked back, kind of like the house sparrow, but it's much smaller than a house sparrow, and it has this little crown here. Red brick colored crown instead of light brown, and then a black eye line through here. Again, there's no stripes here, no spot, which is similar to the female house sparrow. So this part here and this part here may look like a female house sparrow, but in this case, the head is a distinguishing feature. Okay, now it's time for a quiz. Which one is a house sparrow? Now let's see if you've been paying attention. I'll give you about 10 seconds and then we're going to reveal the answer. You can just think it to yourself.
C. The answer C.
The answer is none of the above. So this one may have tricked you. It does look pretty similar to the male house sparrow. This is the Eurasian tree sparrow, again, a non-native species. But you don't really have to worry about this guy unless you happen to live around this area where they are found. They haven't really spread that much. But the distinguishing features between these two, you've got a cheek patch here on this guy. And you can see how the bib extends a little further down. Again, this varies on the male's age here. But this cheek patch is pretty distinctive here on this bird. So now let's move on to nests. Let's say you're not sure if you have martin nests in your martin house or martin gourds. You've got a nest in there and you think it might be a house sparrow, but you're not sure. So what should you look for? So generally speaking, house sparrows will pack a lot of material into a gourd or into a house. And oftentimes it has this tunnel-like appearance. And sometimes there's so much material that it will pop out a door or make a door loose if you've got a martin house, like in a trio house, for example. Or if you just open the gourd lid, you'll see that it's just packed full of material up pretty high like this. And then you can see the eggs here are small and they're speckled. Compare that to this nest on the left with the purple martin white eggs. And you'll see green leaves in most martin nests, not all the time. And then notice that this compartment or gourd here is not completely packed with a tunnel-like appearance like you see here with the house sparrow. So this is a good way to see them side by side and see the difference between martin eggs and house sparrow eggs. But again, if you are not sure what you've got in your gourd or in your martin house, you need to make sure of the bird ID before you take further steps. But this is one good clue to see what you've got. Now let's move on to the ewes or the starling. I'm going to play a sound here. So what you may notice about the starling's call, if you're familiar with other blackbirds or other members of the icterid family, is that a lot of them have this kind of a squeaky gait kind of a call. And there are some elements of that in the starling's call also, but starlings also tend to mimic other birds. And oftentimes you'll hear a rattling kind of component to their call or a squeaky kind of a component to the call as well. Oftentimes the males will sit high in a tree or on top of a building and they'll start calling for mates once they find a site that they think is going to be a good place to nest. So that's a little bit about identifying with the call. Now, as far as what they look like, these are all starlings here. So this is a juvenile that's just fledged. So you see this bird is all brown. It's got a brown beak, excuse me. But one thing you'll notice that all three of these things have in common is the legs. Now the lighting on this one isn't great, but this has pink legs. This has pink legs. And this one has pink legs. Now this bird here is an adult in breeding coloration. You notice the bright yellow, long, needle-like beak. Oftentimes you'll hear people refer to these birds as needle beaks because that beak is sharp and it is long and it is very good at stabbing. And you'll see the starry kind of a pattern on the body here. And on this bird here, and this one is an adult that is not in breeding coloration. You see that the bill is dark, but it still has the pink legs. It still has all the spots on its body there. So what's not a starling? Let's talk about some of these things. Some other black birds or black type birds that you may see that are not starlings. So here's a grackle. Notice the yellow eye and the black bill, and the legs are not pink. How about the brown-headed cowbird? In this case, this one is a male. You will see this bird sometimes walking on lawns and on grasses like starlings sometimes do. But look at the finch-like beak here and the brown head on this bird, and not pink legs. Rusty blackbird, yellow eye here, and the bill is not yellow. And now it's time for a quiz on these guys. Which one is a starling? I'm going to give you about 8 seconds, and then I will reveal the answer. If you said this one, you are correct. Again, comparing here, you can see that this one is not in quite in breeding coloration, but you see how the bill is just starting to turn yellow there. The legs are pink and it's got the speckles on the body. Now moving on to starling nests. Again, let's say you open your gourd or house compartment and you're not sure what you're looking at. Here's some characteristics that that will help you figure out if you've got a starling you're dealing with. So starling nests tend to be big and bulky. So if you compare that to a house sparrow nest, you see there's not a tunnel-like appearance on this one. This one is big and not necessarily flat, but it takes up a lot of room on the sides here. And it's made mostly of grasses, although I have noticed that sometimes at the base of their nest, they will use weed leaves, like bits of clover or little things you may find in your lawn before they start piling these grassy stems, etc., on the top. And then the eggs are blue. Compare that to the martin's eggs, which are white, and the house sparrow eggs, which are speckled. Now, we have other birds that lay blue eggs, like robins and bluebirds, but starlings' eggs are going to be bigger than those. So just offhand to compare this to a bluebird nest, bluebirds' eggs are going to be smaller, and their nest, will have a nice cup shape to it, unlike this bulky loose nest that you see here. Okay, Miss Kathy Freeze, it's your turn.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Courtney. Great introduction. So my piece in this tonight is to introduce a lot of the common myths about the English house sparrow and the European starling. I will say at the beginning of this, I'll give you a caveat. Your mileage may vary. YMMV. I use this a lot because not every site is 100% the same as all the other sites. There may be something unique that happens at your site that would never happen at other sites. And you will hear different stories from other people, but just keep in mind that these are the most common things that happen at the majority of other landlords' sites. So you cannot rely on the one-off things that may happen at other people's colonies. So what Courtney and I have developed here tonight is a list of the common myths that are often told to purple martin landlords and bluebird landlords as well. The first one is that house sparrows and European starlings can coexist in purple martin colonies with the purple martins with no problems. That is not true in the majority of the cases. One, the house sparrow is very territorial. They have a range from their natal home of about 2 to 3 miles. This has been proven in a study that I have posted on the Purple Martin Fanatics site. And a house sparrow actually bonds with the site, not only with the site, but with particular nest boxes. So they will fight a purple martin to the death, which a house sparrow wouldn't die, the purple martin would die. Because they bond with these sites. A European starling is the same way. The European starling, as Courtney showed us earlier, has the needle beak, and they will kill your purple martins and take a nest, as well as the house sparrow will. So no, they cannot coexist. Some people say, oh, they look like they get along fine, but those are normally the people that think they can get along fine and coexist are people that we have found are not doing nest checks. They don't find the punctured eggs that have been killed or the nestlings that have been killed. They don't realize they're missing pairs of purple martins and such things like that. So if you're doing nest checks, you will realize that no, they cannot coexist. Here's a great one. Purple martins will fight off house sparrows and starlings and make them leave permanently. No, never. As I said, house sparrows bond with the site, so they may leave temporarily. They may go catch their breath somewhere in a shrub, but they will be back. And what they're notorious for is waiting for the purple martin parents to leave the site. And then they invade the nest, they kill the eggs or the nestlings that are in there. And the same thing with the European starling. The other thing, if you noted from Courtney's presentation, the vice-like beak of the house sparrow and the needle beak of the European starling, they are far more dangerous than the purple martin's beak. The purple martin has a beak not meant for digging in the dirt and scratching out insects. It catches insects on the fly, so its beak is not meant for fighting off these birds with much stronger and longer beaks. House sparrows and European starlings can be trapped and relocated away from martin colonies. It's another myth that we have found. As I mentioned, house sparrows are territorial. They'll fly right back. In fact, I believe there were reading on the purple martin, the PMCA page, they found that some house sparrows and European starlings actually beat the person back home, but to their site. And besides that, remember, these birds are non-native and invasive. So why would you want to dump them into someone else's neighborhood to become someone else's problem, especially if those people where you dump them are not aware of the dangers that these birds create for your native birds, especially bluebirds and purple martins. All of our native cavity nesters, right? Provide separate housing for house sparrows and European starlings, and they will leave your martins alone. No, that may happen once in 1,000, but why risk it? Why? So several reasons you don't want to do this. One, if you provide separate housing for them and they do happen to take that housing and they do start breeding, guess what happens to your site? The numbers of these invasive birds increase. The competition for the housing increases, and you just have to keep adding housing to appease them. Besides the fact that they will not be appeased, I have actually experienced in my own site here where I have had 3 empty bluebird nest boxes and a pair of house sparrows invaded a nesting pair of tree swallows and killed all 5 of their nestlings, even though there were 3 empty boxes that they could have taken easily. Well, they thought they could have taken, but anyway, here's another one that I hear often, and it really bothers me. Closed, unused houses, house compartments and gourds, and the house sparrow or European starling will leave. No, remember, territory. They are driven to breed. What this does when you close unused gourds and house compartments is it causes them to go into the other open compartments, probably where you have a nesting, hopefully have a nesting pair of purple martins. And if you do close all of your compartments before the purple martins arrive, the house sparrows and European starlings will be there the moment you open those cavities. So take advantage of the fact that before your purple martins get to your site and eliminate house sparrows and European starlings. It's really hard to shoot and trap after your purple martins have arrived at your site. I opened my housing at least a month early and start eliminating right away. Pull house sparrow and European starling nests out and they will leave. No, they do not. There is a phenomenon known as house sparrow revenge syndrome. A lot of people have unfortunately experienced it. House sparrows are very, again, territorial, and once you pull their nests, you you will frustrate them. And what they think has happened is that a predator has invaded their housing. And if your purple martins are there, they think the purple martins are the predators, and they will take out their anger, their rage on your purple martins. They'll go after your purple martins, they'll peck them, they'll peck their eggs and their nestlings if they have any. Do not pull nests ever until you actually trap or shoot the house sparrow or starling. And then once both of them, by the way, the male and the female, once they both are eliminated, then you can pull the nest. Smash house sparrow eggs or European starlings in the cavity and they will leave. No, same thing. They think that the purple martins or the bluebirds, whoever is in the area at the time, are the ones that busted up their eggs, and they will take revenge out on the nearest native bird. European starlings and house sparrows won't nest in a swinging gourd. Yes, they will. We have all seen it. All of us with gourds, we have seen them do it. I guess the people who perpetuated this myth were lucky and didn't have to experience that, but yes, they will. That is why Troyers and other gourd manufacturers make a trap for your gourd. Swinging gourds don't bother them. In fact, European starlings and house sparrows will nest just about anywhere. Shoot the male house sparrow and European starling, and the female will leave. So I had a funny story. I had a neighbor that had problems with house sparrows, and I went down there to try to help him. And I had heard this myth, so I decided to do a little test. And so I shot the male of a house sparrow pair that was there. And I thought, okay, good, the female's going to leave. The guy called me the next day. I went back. The female was back, and she had pulled in another male. Shot him. Rinse, lather, rinse, and repeat. And 5 males later, she was like the Black Widow. She was calling them in, and they were coming in. So I finally shot her as well. But anyway, again, your mileage may vary, but this is not a good rule to follow. Why not just kill them both and be done with it? House sparrow won't nest in a light-filled cavity. As I said, they will nest anywhere. I've seen them nest under eaves of the houses, around the edges of gutters, anywhere. They will stuff their nest as full as they can get it, and close off the light anyway. So they're going to stuff so much junk in there. So that's also another myth. Martins will stay out of a gourd or house cavity with a house sparrow or European starling nest already inside. No, ma'am. They will go in there and try to claim a nest, because purple martins also are territorial. They want, all birds that are in breeding mode are seeking a nest cavity. So they will not stay out of there. They will die trying to claim a gourd or a house cavity. So don't count on that, especially this is why I hate trapping once purple martins are here, and I do all my trapping beforehand, because I can't count on a purple martin staying out of a house sparrow or starling nest. So no, they won't stay out of their nest. How many more are there, Courtney?
That's it. Oh, well, next slide.
All right.
We're keeping you busy.
Okay. I was running out of breath. Okay, good. So how do we get rid of house sparrows and European starlings at a colony site? Boy, there's such a variety of methods. The passive exclusionary method is the SRE, the starling resistant entrance hole. Again, that works just for starlings. It will not work for house sparrows. Active control, trapping, and then euthanizing them. We can talk about different ways to euthanize them at the end of this if you have questions. And there are so many ways you can trap them in the gourds, and then using the repeating traps. And so we're talking about nest box traps, gourd traps, and repeating bait traps. There's also active controls, the shooting that I just talked about. Just a reminder, check your local laws if you're in a residential area. We have covered shooting strategies in one of our other Fanatics YouTube videos if you want to look that up, or you can post about it on our Fanatics page and we can give you the link to that as well.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, take a breath.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so just something to clarify that I didn't really touch on earlier, and I meant to. I got a little bit ahead of myself. So it is legal in the United States to trap and shoot starlings and sparrows because they are non-native invasive birds. And if you are also in North Carolina and have a question specifically about the laws in North Carolina on that, I will be happy to give anybody who's curious a link to the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission paperwork on that specific legislation and rules. So anyway, let's move on. We talked a little bit about SREH earlier. We touched on that. So again, that means a starling resistant entrance hole. So what is a starling resistant entrance hole? It's basically a hole that makes it a lot harder for a starling to get in a nest and or in a gourd or in a compartment and take it over. So the reason they work is because a starling is bigger than a martin and has longer legs, and these entrance hole types take advantage of that difference in anatomy. They can be used to start new colonies too. Another common myth is people think that they cannot start a new site with 100% SREH. That is wrong. I have started 3 new sites with 100% SREH. It can be done. I know other people that have done it as well. So if you are trying to start a new site and this is what you have, hang in there. It will happen for you if you have the right spot. So moving on from there, the most common SREH that you'll probably encounter is the crescent. And this is the one that you commonly see in S&K houses, other plastic houses on the market. It's commonly available in all kinds of gourds and on trio plates too. And then some others that you may see are the WDC or modified excluder. Then this is the excluder 1 and the excluder 2. And then the Conley 2 is the type that is found on Troyer gourds. We'll talk about Troyer gourds in a little while. And then less commonly found now is the Brown and then the Dooley and the Naughton 5-holer. I haven't seen those in a while, but sometimes you'll encounter Klinger entrances too. S&K has this entrance, I believe. They may be the only one using it now, could be wrong, but I think that they still have this available on some of their housing. And then Crescent and Excluder 2 and Conley 2 are the most common ones now. So the most important thing to remember when you have an SREH is how it's installed. So super important that the base of the porch be 1/8 inch or less from the base of the crescent. We do not want the porch to be too low under the crescent, because if it's too low, say if it's a 1/2 inch or 1 inch under, then the starling can use its long legs to try to get more strength to push into that hole. So here the starling would be trying to crouch down to squeeze into this hole, and its long legs get in the way. And that's the way an SRH is supposed to work in one regard. So the way that the crescents work is this is 1 3/16 inches exactly across the middle here. And then this is on a 3-inch measurement here across the side. If that's any bigger, a starling can get in. Any bigger here and any bigger here. So those measurements are super important for a crescent. So now a little bit about the Troyer gourds. Some people, especially in the South, have complained that they've had issues with starlings breaching the Troyer horizontal and the Troyer vertical gourds when they are equipped with a Conley 2 entrance hole. And there are a couple ways to deal with that situation. So one of them is called the Lewis modification. And this was invented by a man, I believe he is in Georgia. His last name was Lewis. I can't remember the rest of his name. Sorry if he's out there or if y'all know him personally, I apologize. But what it does is it takes a thing called a WEP, which is a wing entrapment plate. And the PMCA sells these things. And you put it over the top part of the Conley 2. And then the other common part of the modification is putting a plate here to make it level with the very bottom dip of the Conley 2 here. So there were two parts to the original modification. There was the raising of the floor to be level with this dip here. And then there was the wing entrapment plate that was put here over the top. Now, some people have had success with the modification without using this plate here and just using the wet over the top. Another product that's recently come out by Troyer is called a Starlings stopper. And that's here in this picture on the top right. And the way it was designed is that it will line up with this hole here. The one screw will go here, and then one here and one here. And he's still undergoing a bit of testing with this product, but Andy Troyer would love to hear more people using these and reporting their results as to how they work out for you. So again, the way that these things work is they force the Starling to face the SREH head on and prevent warping and bending of entrance. So sometimes what a Starling will do is they'll try to get in through an SREH sideways, and they'll push on the entrance. And if that entrance is thin and flimsy and bends, sometimes it will bend the plate just enough to distort the shape, and then the Starling can squeeze in. And the Lewis modification and the Starling stoppers prevent the Starling from being able to do that. So a Lewis modification viewed from the inside, Kathy sent me this picture here, and this is from the backside of a Conley 2. You can see how this is the original shape of the Conley 2 entrance here, and this is the wet over the front. And you see now it looks more like a crescent here, but you still have this little dip at the bottom where where the martin can crouch down and still creep through. And this prevents the Starling from turning sideways, and he has to face it straight on, and they get stuck and can't proceed any further. So now we're going to talk a little bit about trapping and baiting methods for Starlings. So again, we're going to look at the ID of this bird trapped in the cage. So remember to never leave a trap unmonitored and quickly release any natives. Now, hopefully, since we went a little bit over ID, you can look at this bird pretty quickly and tell me if this is a Starling or not. So we've got pink legs, we've got a long yellow needle beak, and we've got speckles. This is definitely a Starling. This was one that I caught in my trap. So there's different types of traps, and we're going to go over a few of those. So there's nest box traps. There's traps that will fit inside gourds. There's compartment traps for houses, and there's different styles of those, and ground traps. So some things that you can bait traps with for ground traps specifically include things like popcorn and suet, cracked corn, grain, and even peanut butter. Doesn't everything like peanut butter? Sure seems to. So for compartment or gourd traps, something that I've personally found helpful when I'm trying to trap a Starling is if I put long stalks of grass hanging out of the entrance, it makes them think that another bird is nesting there or has nested there in the past, and it makes them more likely to check out that trap. So just a little tip I found that helps. Again, your mileage may vary, but this is something that works for me. Another thing that's useful when you're trying to trap Starlings is to camouflage the trap triggers. And you can do this by putting a little bit of fake nest material over top of it. And you can paint the trap insides black so they're harder to see. Starlings are attracted to large, dark cavities. And this makes it bad if you have a big wooden martin house with big, dark cavities. They're more inclined to come check it out, but you can use that to your advantage when you're trying to trap them. So let's talk about that just a little bit. So here we have what we call an NBT, or a nest box trap. And so this trap is designed to look like an old wooden martin house. And if you're going to use this type of trap, it's important to put it in the right place to help prevent catching martins. So a good place to put a house like this is near a tree line, because we all know martins don't like trees, but Starlings don't seem to mind them so much. So you're less likely to catch martins in a trap like this if it's not right out in the open. So a trap like this is good for DIYers, and it resets itself. So if you like to build, you like to tinker, there are plans to build one of these things and you can do it yourself. Troyer sells a similar product called the S&S controller that you can buy from their website or buy the plans from them. And the good thing about this trap is it works for starlings and house sparrows. And if you set the counterweight to about 2/4, to trigger for 2/4, it'll catch house sparrows too. Now, with this trap, the birds are caught alive, and non-target birds can easily be released unharmed. After you've identified what you've caught, you can release it if it's a native bird or just not a house sparrow or starling. So what does the inside of an NBT look like? So in this one here, this is if you were to open up the front of the house. The entrance hole is here. So the way that these things work is, in this instance, you've got a coffee can here. This is your round, dark entrance hole. So the bird sees this, he goes in this round entrance hole, and he jumps down, he lands on the coffee can. The coffee can tips down with his weight. And then there's an exit hole in the back rear of the trap. And in the back of the trap, you have attached a tube, and the tube goes down to a holding cage down at the ground. And these things have a teeter-totter on them, and then there's a counterweight here on this side. And you can see that again in this view here. This is like the top of the can here. And then your mounting plate and the teeter-totter where it pivots here, and then your counterweight on this side here. We have free plans that you can download to build this thing yourself if you're inclined to do that. I have a link for it on my website at ncpurplemartin.org. Under the links section, you can go and find it there. Or if you're not into tinkering or building, you can purchase these already made from Troyer's Birds Paradise as well, and they build a nice one. So what if you have a gourd rack and you'd like to put a trap in a gourd? So there are several types of gourd insert traps. I'm just going to go over one of them here. So in this case, we've got a round hole super gourd. And in this picture, I've got a super gourd insert trap in this round hole super gourd. I've mounted it here. You can see the clips on the outside here of the hole. Now, what I will say about this particular trap is, I don't know, but for some reason, I found this one pretty hard to get in there. Once it's in there, but it's a little tricky to mount. This trap is very effective. So you've got it mounted here, you see on the outside, and then what you see on the inside is, this is the trigger here. I've got a blue arrow pointing to it here, and you can see some nest material here kind of disguising the trigger. And I also spray painted the trigger black so it wouldn't stand out as much. This is a view from the inside with the access cap off. And here you can see the trap is set. So the bird comes through the round hole, he jumps through here, he lands on this trigger here. And when that happens, this shutter comes down. And here you can see that the trap is sprung. And what I like about this trap door is it's pretty darn heavy. And the only shred of light they see is right here at the top. So sometimes starlings will try to lift up a trap door to get out. And they can't lift up this door because they see this little sliver of light here. They try to push out, and all they're doing in that case is pushing the trap door down even more. So they can't get out of it like this. Now, if you do use a trap like this, you do have to put a bag over the access cap to remove the bird in that case, after confirming what you have caught. Now, there are other types of traps. This is a ground trap called a V-top trap. And in this video, you will see how it is set for catching starlings. So you'll see with this trap, the entrance is up here at the top. You can access it through this door here on the side. And the idea is that the trap is baited at the bottom. The birds fly in through the access at the top, and then they can't figure out how they got in. It's kind of like a crab trap. And then they fly around the cage, and then you can go in to collect them when you want to do that at your convenience. The plans for this trap are available from the Troyers, Birds Paradise, and PMCA. Now here's one that Brad built. This one, it was one that he built for house sparrows. This is a short little video here. Similar design here. Again, the birds can get in through the top here, and this one's got a nice metal frame, should be pretty sturdy. And you can see that it's baited in the bottom there. Other trapping and baiting methods for house sparrows. Kathy Freeze.
Okay, cool. So there are several here that Courtney is showing, and there are two different types. There are compartment and gourd traps, and there are food type traps which you would bait. The Uncle Blaine repeating ground trap is one of my favorite traps, but I use it in partnership with other traps. So let's start with Uncle Blaine first. European starlings and house sparrows are normally their hungriest and will go for food traps primarily during the fall and winter and spring seasons. The Uncle Blaine repeating gourd ground trap is awesome for this because it's a repeating trap. You don't have to go out and pull out each bird as it gets in there, but you can bait it with popcorn, cracked corn, white millet, white bread feathers, pulled nest material, etc. In that little trap, that little bait container that you see over there just past the lever. The deluxe universal sparrow trap that you see to the upper right there is one that you can use in a nest box. So if you have a T14 or you have any type of housing, really, I've used it also in the plastic S&K barn houses, that deluxe universal sparrow trap. One thing I have found to make this trap more effective, Courtney mentioned painting the inside of the trap black. I have actually cut out pieces of cardboard and put them on each side and the back and painted them flat black. And a starling will look in there and see, he can't see anything because the flat black paint is on the cardboard, right? And he enters the cavity and he's caught. Same thing for the house sparrow. I've also added little pieces of straw or the house sparrow's nest on top of the trip lever on the bottom and painted that black as well, just so they can't see the trip lever. One of my favorite traps there in the bottom right is the Van Oort trap. The Universal Gilbertson trap also works on the same idea as the Van Oort, and the Hubert is just a little bit different. I haven't used the Hubert myself, but my favorite is the Van Oort. You can get the Van Oort trap. It used to be about $9. I have 5 of them because I have 14 bluebird and tree swallow boxes. And the beauty of the Van Oort trap is you can put it in and trap the bird, and then you can just take it right back out and just leave the screws in to put back in there whenever you see that a house sparrow is invading your nest. Using these in combination, whenever you trap a house sparrow or a European starling in your bluebird box or your purple martin housing, if you take that bird and put it into your Uncle Blaine repeating ground trap, they will call in other birds. Not sure why. We're not sure if the house sparrow is calling for help or if he's just calling for other birds to come join me. I've got free food and water in here. By the way, make sure you put in water and food in there if you do put house sparrows in there, because they will absolutely draw in other house sparrows into your repeating ground trap. It is the best thing to use these two traps in combination. European starlings too, it will work. It just doesn't work as well with starlings for me, but with house sparrows, it is it is really, and really using that combination in the fall. If there are any house sparrows that have fledged in the fall, that where you weren't able to catch their parents, the fledges will just march right in there, following their parents in there. So use both. Get you a few Van Aerts. They're awesome. Okay. Is there anything else on trapping, Courtney?
See. I think you pretty much covered it. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Okay, just another picture here to show other types of traps that are available. The PMCA sells a nest box trap that you can get from their website. This one will catch both starlings and house sparrows. And then at the bottom, there's a trap that the style was done by a fellow named Ray Gingrich. Some of you may know him from the PMCA forum. And he was on a few of the Facebook groups for a little while too. And this one has a sparrow door on the front of it. Now, sparrow doors used to be commonly found and could be used on trio houses, but they are very hard to find now. So I'm not going to talk much about the sparrow door trap. It is a great little trap. If you have one, they're wonderful. And if you have an old trio house and you're not using it, you could load it up with sparrow door traps and catch sparrows very easily with it. Okay, time for a summary, Miss Kathy Freeze.
Okay, in case you guys were wondering, and you still have any questions, our message here is that house sparrows and European starlings should not be tolerated at your purple martin colony sites, period. Eliminate them. For traps, make sure you check your traps often. You may catch a bluebird in there, and you don't want a bluebird trapped in with a European starling or a house sparrow. Cardinals are notorious for going into the Blaine's repeating house trap. By the way, here's a tip for you. Make sure you wear gloves if you remove a cardinal from your repeating trap, please. They will bite you and they will not let go. So check your traps often. Other lessons we've learn to identify native birds so that you can quickly release them from the traps. By the way, white-crowned sparrows are also notorious for entering the repeating ground traps with bait in them. So you'll want to let them go as well. If you don't can't be present to manage your colony 100% of the time, or even if you can, I use 3 as well, but I work from home and I'm able to monitor, but use 3, or be willing to at least actively eliminate any starlings that show up at any round hole colony sites. By all means, if you are hosting a public colony site, please use 3. It's very difficult to explain to people in public why you're killing starlings and house sparrows. And do not relocate house sparrows and starlings. Do not make your problem someone else's problem, please. And you don't want to drop them into another area where the bluebirds and the purple martins and by the way, this presentation is more than about protecting purple martins. It's about protecting our bluebirds, our chickadees, our tufted titmice, our woodpeckers, all kinds of our native cavity nesting birds. So, you know, just because you drive off a house sparrow or a starling, you've just caused it to be someone else's problem, and another native bird will probably suffer from that decision. Please use humane euthanasia methods and get help if necessary. There are multiple ways to humanely euthanize house sparrows and starlings. If you guys want to talk some more about that, we're happy to help you with defining that. As much as we dislike them, we still want to be humane and euthanize them quickly.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. We have a
Okay.
hand up. I think that's Brad.
So just a few quick notes before we break into comments here. If you are in Virginia or within driving distance of Virginia, consider heading down to the 28th annual Purple Martin Field Day. You can get more information about it by going to their website, purplemartinfieldday.org, and they discuss a lot of these same type of topics at the field day. It's great. It's a wonderful group of people, and if you haven't gone, you should try it sometime. Now we're going to head into a time for questions and discussion. And if you've enjoyed this presentation, feel free to join us. If you're in North Carolina, please come join me over ncpurplemartin.org. That's our website. And then if you're on Facebook, feel free to come join us over at the Purple Martin Fanatics group as well.
Courtney, we have a question from Joel Snyder. Would you like to take it, or would you like me to take it?
Yes, now that I can see everybody again. Sure.
Okay. So Joel has asked, when should you start trapping house sparrows? I have heard trapping before the purple martins arrives reduces house sparrow population, and personally seeing less competition during the season. You're absolutely correct, Joel. So the best time to start trapping and the best method to start trapping, let's take the best time is to start trapping in the spring. As soon as you see house sparrows showing up at your site before the purple martins arrive. So in the spring, before they're ready to start nesting, the best type of trap to use would be bait traps. The Blaine repeating ground trap that we talked about earlier. Use the foods that we talked about to trap them. If they have already started nesting, you can deploy the Van Oort traps, trap them and put them in your repeating trap. But to your point about reducing the competition, yes, you absolutely can. I posted on the Fanatics page before. There was some research done at a North Dakota grain site where they actually tagged house sparrows and they tracked them, and they found that house sparrows never traveled outside more than their 3-mile natal range from their site. And what that means is that, yes, you can start reducing the population in your area with extensive trapping and shooting. And I have seen it when I started out here. I killed 75 my first year, and it reduced to 40 the next year and 30 or so the next year. And now I only see 2 or 3 house sparrows each year. Caveat to that is that Matt Potretz has mentioned that it's not reducing in his area. But upon further investigation, we also found that Matt Potretz has additional dairy farms within that 2 to 3 mile natal range, where they are allowing the house sparrows to procreate, to nest and hatch their young. So of course there'll be exceptions, but I live out here on 23 acres and I only have about 3 house sparrows a year now. So yes, you can make a difference. Don't give up. And if you guys need further help with trapping, just log into our Fanatics page and we can help you with more details.
I will say something briefly about trapping starlings, especially if you are in or around North Carolina. The high trapping season for starlings is going to be starting February 1st. So if you can go ahead and put a few cavities open, if you put traps in those cavities or whatever traps you choose to deploy, that's when they're going to start looking for nest sites. And I have found that I'm able to clean out a good number of starlings before my martins come back by starting early trapping for starlings right at the beginning of February.
Courtney, would you like to take the question? Valerie Kenyon asked, what about addling the house sparrow eggs?
So what I will say, I'll say something briefly about that. And then Kathy, if you want to add anything to that, you can. There are some folks that do try to addle eggs. And the idea is that you pick up the egg, you shake it really hard, and it kills the embryo inside and keeps it from hatching. And the idea is that it keeps the house sparrow busy with its own eggs, trying to incubate an egg that's never going to hatch. Well, this might slow the problem down a little bit, but it's not getting rid of the adults. I would call it a passive method of control. You want to add anything else to that, Kathy?
I Only that I've tried addling eggs before, until I could actually trap the house sparrows, and I've never been able to shake them hard enough to addle them. So I've heard of people poking a pin needle pin in the back of them. I guess you could try different things, but as Courtney said, it doesn't eliminate the parents. As an interim measure, while you're trying to trap the parents or shoot them, it might help you, but your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I asked that question because invariably when I do a presentation on behalf of Virginia Bluebird Society, you have someone who goes, oh, I couldn't possibly, what should I do? And, what do you say to them? You need to trap them and kill them, but.
Right. Well, yes, there are passive measures with that I've heard about that some work for some people, which was the Courtney, what are those called? The flags, the strips of
Yeah.
put on a box or something.
Mylar or monofilament, I believe.
Yeah, monofilament may work on boxes. I'm not sure. I've never tried that before. That may work. If you think you can addle the eggs enough, you could absolutely try it. I would prefer that you stick a pin in it and swish it around to break up the yolk. Because I've had eggs hatch that I tried to addle. I'm just not shaking them hard enough. So I think there may be some other passive measures identified on the Cialis site. But I'm not sure. I can't speak to those, honestly.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Humane methods of dispatching house sparrows. Okay.
I may be able to add something there.
Sure.
Bill
Yes.
Wenger.
Yeah, go Bill. Hey.
I have a lot of public sites, and a lot of times it's definitely difficult to either remove house sparrows or starlings. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll remove 1 or 2 eggs at each nest check until I get down to 1 egg and let that hatch. The parents don't seem to get overly bothered by that because it's natural. Then you can let them raise that 1 young one, and then you could either let that go, because that would be better than leaving 4 or 5 to fledge. So at least you're narrowing it down to 1. Maybe you can pick another time where you can shoot them or trap them. At some of my public sites, I can take a cage of some sort. So if I do remove a house sparrow in a trap or a starling, I can put it in a cage. And it always happens when you're right in that situation. Somebody shows up, and then you can tell them that you're going to relocate them. And, you just go and you put them in your garden. So there's different ways of doing it. You just got to be really careful.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, Bill, for chiming in and helping out there. I really appreciate that. All right, so I think it was Valerie. You also asked about humane methods of dispatching house sparrows. Very honestly, the most humane method, it sounds brutal, but it's cervical dislocation, breaking their neck. A lot of people will tell you to put them in a bag and spray ether in that bag. I have heard that, it works, but I've heard that it's a little bit painful for them because it suffocates them. But if that's absolutely the only way you can do it, then do it. But cervical dislocation, I guess I will try a pin. So let's pretend that the head of this pin, I don't know if you got, yeah, the head of this pin, this is the head of the bird. So you want to control the bird with your right hand if you're right-handed. And I take my left hand and I spin it underneath the bird's head, and I twist counterclockwise and pull at the same time until I feel the neck vertebrae break, I guess it's the word, or pull, separate, and you'll feel it pop loose. That's the way I do cervical dislocation. It's fast, it's easy, and although you can feel the bird kind of panic, it's the most humane method you can do. Other people will tell you different methods. I don't agree with those methods, so I'm not even going to talk about them. Courtney, do you have any other methods?
I've used other methods in the past, and I will say this was true for so many people when they first start doing this. And sometimes when you find yourself in a situation where you have to euthanize your first starling or house sparrow, sometimes it's hard for people, especially if they've never been a hunter, never been a trapper, don't have any background of that. It might make you uncomfortable, and you may take some practice, getting that technique that works best for you. But what I have found that works the best and fastest for me is cervical dislocation. And I will say with the house sparrow, they're easier. It doesn't take much force to do it with a house sparrow. It takes a little bit more with a starling.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, we've got a pair of pliers will break their neck. Thank you, Bill. That's a good idea. A pair of pliers. Debbie asks, I have a tomahawk starling trap. Will putting starlings in there help attract more starlings to the trap? Just like using sparrows and Uncle Blaine's will attract more sparrows. It might. I don't know. I have never tried it with starlings. To be honest with you, I don't have a starling problem around here anymore because I shoot each one that shows up. Sorry, I just do. So I don't really have a problem with it. Does anybody, Bill or anyone else, have any comment on that? Will putting one starling in a trap attract the others? Okay.
I would think it would.
That on starlings, I'm not sure.
I would think it would
It
if
does
it goes
work in
on
a V
the.
trap.
Sorry, Bill.
It does work in a V trap. So
Right.
Oh, that's true. Okay. So Debbie, yes, it may. Try it and get back to us and let us know. Debbie also says the pillowcase method is easy and quick. I do it with a laundry bag and a drawstring. Debbie, are you there? Can you hear us?
I think she's muted.
Yes, I'm here, and I posted a little bit later. You said you didn't like the other methods, so I was just curious what is wrong with the pillowcase method, because it seems quick and easy to me.
I've never
There's
heard,
maybe something I don't know.
I've never heard of the pillowcase method. Other methods that I've heard about that I don't like are smashing it with the brick or other things. But what do you mean by the pillowcase method?
Well, you put it in I use a drawstring laundry bag, mesh bag, and I catch them in that bag. I put it over the box or whatever and let them fly into that bag, and then I draw the string, and then I just swing it in circles and hit it hard against the ground, and they go really quick, and I don't have to hold them in my hand to do it. Holding them in my hand to do it is stressful to me.
Right. Okay. If it works for you, that's great.
I just thought maybe there's something I don't know since you.
No, I've just never done it. Yes, Courtney.
I thought about posting a video of it, but then I thought I might get in trouble and get banned, put in Facebook jail. So, but I've heard a lot of people explain it, and I tried it, and it's just quick and easy to me.
Okay.
So basically, the thing to remember is how the AVMA defines what humane euthanasia is. So those are some good guidelines to kind of remember what's considered humane to euthanize an animal. So cervical dislocation is right on up there. So that's why I tend to recommend that one. It's not obviously the only way you can do it, but it is quick and easy. But do what works for you.
Yeah, I will share a quick story. I found a new site here in our county, and I went over to help the man trap house sparrows because he didn't know they were bad. And I set up my Blaine's repeating trap. And after 2 days, I had over 50 house sparrows in there. And at the time I was using ether to euthanize. I ran out of ether when I was pulling out over 50 house sparrows. So that's where I first learned to do cervical dislocation. And well, I kind of terrified my neighbors when they learned that I knew how to do that. Okay.
Okay,
Kind of-
I think Brad is trying to talk, but I don't know which iPhone he is. I see 2 iPhones.
Hello,
Oh,
Hello?
I guess that's you.
Hello?
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Wow, y'all are way more professional when I'm not involved than that you are when I'm involved.
There,
didn't
now I
hear
named
you.
you.
Yeah, I didn't hear you discuss the Haskell trap. You may have. I lost y'all one time. And did y'all mention anything about sticky traps, glue traps?
no,
No.
Sorry.
Do you
Sorry.
want to talk about them?
Well, I can. The Haskell trap is designed to work with the Troyer gourd, the Troyer tunnel. They designed their new Starling stopper to be easily removed so the Haskell trap can still be used. And despite what you read on the internet, don't ever put a glue trap in a birdhouse, because if you catch the wrong species of bird, there's not a good outcome for the birds that get caught in the glue traps. So don't ever put a glue trap in a birdhouse
or a mouse trap either.
or mouse trap.
Right. Thank you, Brad. Laps has a question. Is the house sparrow the only type of sparrow that we need to be concerned about? Yes. I would say just flat out yes, 100%. If you ever see a house sparrow and ID it, you will notice that they are the only ones that will invade your bluebird housing and kill, and your purple martin housing. So yes, the house sparrow is the only one. So what else have we got here?
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
The most effective way to keep eggs from hatching without poking a hole in them is to coat them in mineral oil.
Valerie, there you go.
Don't try to shake them, coat them in mineral oil. I'm in Alabama, we say oil. I don't know if you
Okay.
understand what I'm saying.
There you go.
Courtney
Thank
can
you.
translate. Courtney
Thank you.
can translate. You're welcome.
Thank you, Brad.
You're welcome.
That's why it takes a village here to run the Fanatics
There you
Zoom
go.
meetings.
I typed it out
And
for
the-
you.
And the village party.
You're breaking up, Brad.
I said the village idiot was the last one to the party.
Oh, thanks. Mike has brought up tree swallow interference. Yes, we probably will talk about that in a separate Zoom. But we don't, they are native, so we don't eliminate them. In fact, they can help a colony out, but we'll cover tree swallows in a different Zoom meeting and how to deal with them, especially for new colonies.
Yeah, that'll be a good topic.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any other questions from anyone?
I just saw a comment from Debbie, but that was the last thing I saw. Debbie, I didn't quite understand your comment. It says,
In-
also, I was told and have noticed that in the breeding season that starlings have bright yellow eggs.
Oh, legs. Spell check or something got me. Bright yellow legs. And that was the easiest way for me to identify when I see a big black bird with long legs up on a wire. When I first started, to me, those bright yellow legs were just, that was my surety that it was a starling. So I don't know, you didn't say anything about that when you were describing, you talked about the pink legs, but around here in the breeding season, they have the bright yellow legs.
Interesting.
But they change.
Oh yeah,
Have y'all not noticed that?
I haven't.
I mean-
No.
Weird. Well, if I catch one in breeding season, I will post a picture.
Sounds good.
Joel Snyder just posted and said that's true for juvenile starlings.
True for juveniles. Okay, so that would be in the breeding season. I guess you'd have babies fledging around. I don't know.
I just thought of one little thing with the Blaine's repeating sparrow trap. Some people like to put them right on the ground. I like to put mine on top of a little table that I built that's only about 2 feet high. So your mileage may vary with where you place your trap. If you place it near shrubs and stuff where the house sparrows are hanging out, you're more likely to catch them there with the bait trap. How many people are going to go out and buy a Van Aert trap now?
Oh, I have several.
Good. They are very, just do a Google search. Tom, I saw you raise your hand. Just do a Google search and you can find Van Aert traps. All right.
Any other questions? No more comments from the Brad Peanut Gallery?
If I wasn't driving 80 miles an hour on the interstate, I'd have all kinds of comments, but I'm trying to be good. It's hard to do a Zoom meeting and drive and eat at the same time
Dude.
and watch for deer.
Yeah. Okay, so I think Kathy Lane wanted to mention again, purplemartinfieldday.org. That's for the Virginia Purple Martin Field Day. You can go to that website, get more information about that event.
Courtney, you think there's any chance we can get a video of Debbie with that pillowcase method?
Not a chance.
Hey, I'll volunteer to do it. I'm guilty of that.
You go right ahead. I'll let you take the jail risk.
Yeah, just do it out in your backyard. One thing that I learned real quick was when I first started, when the martins left, I kind of let my guard down and I went to peace with the sparrows, right? And that's okay. It's a new guy mistake, right? And the next year I was overwhelmed. You know, when I finally got my stuff together, I killed 102 of them and
Wow.
they still kept coming, right? So, I mean, you got to go after them, but don't let your guard down when the martins are gone, right? Because that's when you can, you know, lay out the soot feeders and shoot them off of that. Or the Blaine's trap is great, but you know, the nest box traps won't be so effective. But just don't let your guard down because you can make a difference. You know, I mean, I've got like a bubble of compliance around the neighborhood now. So I could drive 2 streets over and there's sparrows everywhere, but not here, right? So even in a neighborhood, you can make a difference. Just keep at them and just keep your martins safe, I think.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes.
No, you're welcome. And Kathy, thank you, because I learned a lot of tips from you, ma'am. I think I've read that thing 100 times.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad I helped. It's what we need to do is share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you
Well,
for reading.
And real quick on that, Tom, thank you. Yeah, we've kind of done similar here with our children and teaching them an identification. And we typically shoot, but here, now we are in Ohio. So of course, winter season, we keep our boxes up year round. And we've actually had a couple female house sparrows take residence for shelter in those boxes. So we did deploy the Van Aerts and got 2 in, what was it, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She noticed that, you know, they're taking up residence. So we deployed the Van Aerts and our daughter actually came out and helped.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, to everybody, it's what we're trying to pass along
Yes.
to our kids and others and how to do this, but also safely. And this is the greater cause. So great presentation, everybody.
Thank you so much.
And thank you,
was
Travis,
good.
for teaching your kids. It's so important.
I tell my grandchildren they're flying rats. I got that off the Facebook groups. They understand about rats.
You can debone the breasts and cook them in a pie. They're not bad.
Oh,
4 and 20 of them.
4 and 20 of them. That was a joke.
all right, folks. Everyone, thank you for attending. We really appreciate it for showing up, and we will post the video later on our YouTube channel. Go
Good
Purple
job,
Martins.
ladies.
Thank
Good
you.
job, ladies.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
very
you
much,
all.
everyone.